My name is Charlie Fairbairn, and this is the FlutterFlow Master Class Introduction to FlutterFlow. This is really the starting point if you're first coming out into FlutterFlow. I've been developing in this program for well over 2.5 years now, and well, it has come on leaps and bounds. It was good at the beginning, but it really is a fantastic product now. What are we going to cover in this initial tutorial is going to be setting up Firebase absolutely from scratch. Storage in Firebase, still part of the same thing. Authentication, login, role redirect. Role redirects are where you might have one major client account, but within that account you may have different roles. We're going to be developing basically a bar restaurant application, and that would be people who are working in the kitchen, at the bar, and the waiters. Widget generation using AI, well, that's the pièce de résistance of FlutterFlow at the moment, but we're also going to be covering how to create widgets using generating by hand, because you are always going to have to learn that skill. The AI is never perfect. Containers and dimensions, just basic layouts, tips and hints on that one. Image upload, we're going to be uploading images which are going to show the products that people can buy, drinks and things like that. We're going to put that into a bottom sheet that comes up from the bottom, and we're going to use tabs for filtering. We're going to be passing parameters to another widget, which is passing down the tree. Very, very important to be able to pass parameters into another widget so that we can use the information from the master widget into the other widget. We're going to be covering that. Similar to that is callbacks, but in actual fact in some ways more powerful. This is when you pass information back up from a widget into the widget in which it is contained, and then it has the ability to execute an action. Now we're going to be covering those two things. They are incredibly important. We're going to be covering actions, which we'll see in a moment. We're going to do custom actions. When an action doesn't exist in the palette that is provided by FlutterFlow, we need to create our own. We'll be covering the difference between custom actions and custom functions. We're then going to be doing queries on the database, and we're going to do query filtering on the query. We're also going to do a different kind of filtering, which is filtering on the visibility. We're going to cover navigation and routes. Navigation speaks for itself, but routes are something worth understanding. We're going to cover application variables, which are variables or lists of variables that are available across the whole application and also can be loaded when the person first comes into the application and memorizes the state of them. Page variables, which are a bit more volatile, and they are used on the page or on the component. We'll also be covering a lot of other things, but these are the main things that we're going to be doing here. This course will therefore give you the foundation for several other more complex things that we're going to be covering in future tutorials. Namely, we're going to be doing cloud functions, speak for themselves. Amazon style filters, requested a lot by people that I know. Not that difficult to do, but it's not obvious. Setting up the ideal stack, we're going to be covering maybe some external AI tools that we can use, such as Cursor. SEO optimization, not something that we normally talk about when we're dealing with FlutterFlow applications, but we're going to cover that anyway. Custom widgets using AI, well, we're going to cover a bit of that today, but we're going to go into great detail. Some special effects that we're going to use, Netflix style animations are pretty cool. Video calling, a WhatsApp kind of communication requiring no server, that you can communicate with between people, just like WhatsApp really. Original file names, how you can keep the original file names when you upload single and multiple documents, and Reddit hierarchical style comments, which use a recursive technique. Now, if you want to be let known when these new videos are ready, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this particular video. Then we can remind you of when that is actually available. You will also be given the opportunity here to be able to tell me of those things you'd like me to do videos on, and I will definitely look at those and do the best I can. Now, for the purposes of this tutorial, we're going to be creating a real-world application to solve a real-world problem in my eyes anyway. I frequent the northeast of Brazil quite often, and there are lots of beautiful beaches and beach bars there. In our particular local beach bar, they have a chaotic accounting system. If you order bottled beer, it'll come, they'll put it under the table, they'll count them at the end. If you order a cocktail, chances are at the end of that, they're going to come up and ask you how many you ordered. And if you order, say, some French fries, well, it might come in 15 minutes, but it might come in 50 minutes, where the chips have been ready, the French fries have been ready for some half an hour, but because they're up on a food truck, up on the road, the waiters don't know that they're ready and they don't deliver. So that is actually the application that we are going to develop that solves this problem. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to create what I call a multi-tenanted, multi-user application. Now, it's multi-tenanted because there could be on our system many different beach bars or other bars using the system, and therefore they need to be separated completely within the database with certain security rules to make sure there's no bleeding of information from one to the other. And it's going to be multi-user because each user that logs in is going to be given a role. So for instance, you might have 2 people in the kitchen, you might have 1 person behind the bar, and you might have 3 waiters. Okay, now as they log into the system, they're going to choose a role because that could change daily. They're going to choose a role, one of the 3 areas, so the kitchen, the bar, and waiting tables, the waiters. Okay, so when they come in and look at the application, they're not all going to see exactly the same information. The kitchen's going to see food orders, the bar is going to see, well, they're going to see all the drinks, in fact, but they're going to know the cocktails are separate because they take 5 or 10 minutes to prepare. The beers are going to be ready for the waiters to pick up. At the end of the whole process, the waiter's going to know exactly what people have ordered, how much it is. We're going to add some fancy features a bit later, maybe in another tutorial, for instance, photographing the menu so that we use some AI to put the inventory into it. And you can see over here that I've sort of mocked up an initial page of this. You can see we've got place order and this, that, and the other. But we're not going to look at that right now because, in fact, I'm going to start again. This was just a sketch of an idea that I came up with to see, some of the parameters that I was looking at. But we're going to start from scratch. What I really want to talk about here is that at the beginning, not many people know that the online web version of FlutterFlow is different from the Windows local version of it. There's a downloadable application that you can put on your desktop, the desktop version, and it comes in Windows and it comes in Mac. Now, this difference is extremely important. We're now looking here at the application in the web version. Now, in order to be able to render your application and test to see whether it works, the web version really only gives you one option, and it's up here. It's this lightning strike over here, and this allows you to run the application on the FlutterFlow servers and for you to be able to test and see whether it is working. So that's a web version of your application on their servers. Now I'm just going to click that and pause so that we can see what that actually looks like. And in a minute we're going to see that if you go into the desktop version, you have several more very powerful options, which include installing directly the APK, the actual application, onto a mobile phone that is plugged in to your desktop. Now this is infinitely preferable, particularly if you're developing for a mobile application, not least because the online one gives you 28 minutes, and that can whittle down to 22 once it's all loaded up. And so refreshing the page works in both of them, but after 22 minutes you've got to start the session again. You do not have to do that if it's running locally. And there are several other differences we're going to come to, but I'm just going to boot this one up on the web version so you can see roughly how that works. Okay, so this part of the process is going to take a couple of minutes. That's eating into your 28 minutes of development time. In this next section of the tutorial, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through all the features here from the bottom going all the way up to the top, across to AI and down the other side. I'm going to cover a lot of things because a lot of things are really quite new and quite exciting too at the same time. And it's not the same. The last tutorial I did was a year ago. 26,000 people watched it. Great. Okay, before we dive in and flesh out this application, let's go and have a look at what the latest version of FlutterFlow has to offer. I'm going to start here on the bottom left with the settings, work my way up the side, come across over here and work my way down the far side. So let's go and have a look at the settings here. I'm going to run through them very quickly because there are a lot of them and we're not going to be using many of them. Gemini, AI, One Signal, SMS messages mainly, Mux live stream, video streams, Ad Mod, collecting revenue from inside your application, Google Maps, self-explanatory, Google Analytics, how well is your app performing, Angolia, sign up for their account, a very rapid searching of an inventory of a very large numbers, takes your database offline. GitHub holds your code on GitHub, and we've got two databases here, SQLite and Superbase, and I'm going to come on to those in a second. Over here we've got 4 different kinds of payment processors. Please note that the 2 important ones in my opinion are Stripe and RevenueCat. You can use Stripe when you've got a web application, and the web application basically allows you to make charges there without going through the fees that the Apple and Android apps are going to charge. However, it will not work in the application itself, in which case you need to do RevenueCat, and RevenueCat will deduct the commission from Android and Apple and pay it across to them automatically, that commission being typically between 15 and 30%, 15 for smaller companies. And it might be worth pointing out that they take care of the credit card processing, so there's a little bit to be saved there. So at 15% is actually not as bad as it sounds. We're going to go up here. Web deployment is literally what it says. We can create a website at this particular URL. We haven't enabled it over here, so we're going to enable it over here. Mobile deployment takes a little bit of setting up, but it does allow you to, if you have the developer accounts for Google and for the iStore, you can use this to automatically publish to those. As I say, you need keys, you need developer accounts. The 2 developer accounts added together will cost $250, I might add, so it's not something we're going to do right at the beginning. Push notifications, again, are fairly self-explanatory. We'll turn those on a little bit later when we need them, and they are controlled by Firebase, the Firebase push notification system. Authentication is part of the Firebase suite of things that it will do. If we enable authentication, then for instance we're going to have a login screen to start with, and then we're going to go to the next screen after login, which we'll just enable that for a second so we can have a look. Your initial page would therefore be a login page, and your logged in page would therefore be what you come to after that. Now we're not going to enable authentication now, but we probably will later. The dev environment allows you to create 2 environments, maybe a production and a development version, and it allows you to change the parameters that you might use. For instance, if you have an API call to one API for production, you can have a different API call, for instance, to the development. We're going to just stick with the one at the moment. Project dependencies. Now, built into FlutterFlow, there are a whole load of dependencies. These are typically packages picked up from the website pub.dev. So go and check out that website if you don't know what it is. And these are the ones that they built in. However, if you want to add your own afterwards, you can do. I've added something that allows me to create a custom widget, which is a different kind of audio player, and I've used these 2 packages. Now take care when you're doing this to make sure that your package that you choose, you're using the version that is compatible with any of the other ones over here. You may have to use a slightly older version if you find you're running into version errors when you compile. Permissions, well, we are going to use the camera, so we're going to ask for permission for a camera, and we probably will use, I'm not going to put in notifications yet, I'm not going to do that. Oh, I do like biometrics though, and let's not do that yet. Platforms, I see we've got an error, we're going to come back to that in a minute. We've activated web, we've got iOS and Android. Languages, self-explanatory, primary English maybe, display language could be Portuguese. Here is where we set up the backend database. Now, before I'd actually set this up, there would have been a button there to let FlutterFlow take care of this absolutely automatically. Now, you do need to be on the Blaze plan to be able to do that. Okay, it won't work on anything lower than that, and it does mean you have to get your credit card out, but they do not charge at all. They have a hugely generous free tier on that one, so don't worry too much. The only time that I've ever been charged is for a cloud function that had a listener that was permanently open, and that was only a small sum of money. So don't hesitate to go and get yourself the Blaze, and then you hit this button and it should set everything up for you. Now if it doesn't, you can do this manually, and there are plenty of tutorials on various places around YouTube that will teach you how to do that. These will be the config files for each of the platforms will be generated here if you need to, and we can open the Firebase console over here and we can see the actual database, except it's not working right now. I have probably not logged in properly, but we won't worry about that for the moment. We go up to collaboration. That is really self-explanatory. You can have someone else work on your project at the same time as you. That is different from a team where the team can be working on separate parts at the same time. All right, now swiftly moving on, what have we got over here? This is basically where we set out our design for the application. We've got our colors, we've got our fonts, we've got our design system. This one here quickly at the moment tells you if a design is going to change between mobile, tablet landscape and desktop, at which width it's going to make that transition. We'll come to that later. Theme widgets are really great. You can add, for instance, if you use a button over and over again, you can create a theme widget over here. That means that that's reusable, and that will get used, that will get picked up on the right hand side menu, so you don't have to keep designing that button over and over again. Now I do see that we've got one error over here. Permissions message is missing for camera. Tap to add a message. All right, my bad. Let's go and put in here over there. One word on the theme settings and the design. If you, for instance, come over and you've got a design like this, or if the color scheme isn't as you actually like, so if we go into the settings widget tree at the moment and we have a look at maybe this font over here, really don't alter the color of the fonts down here. Alter it over here. That way it becomes application wide, and it also allows you to have two different designs. One here, as you can see, we've got the light mode and the dark mode. So don't go back to here and change your colors to fit the application, not your application to choose the colors. Swiftly moving on here, agents, that's a new feature. I'm not going to be covering that here. Testing, we're not going to be covering that here. Cloud functions are very powerful. They offload up to Google Cloud functions that might be very computer intensive. Those are best done up there rather than on your actual mobile phone that has got limited processing power. Now over here we've got something very important, which is your custom widgets, custom actions, and your custom functions. Okay, now I have done a list filter one, so we can go and have a quick look at how that is. But basically a function is where you can input data on one side and it'll give you the result on the other. That differs from a custom widget over here, and this is the audio player, and you can see this is actually much more extensive, and this actually does the layout of creating a widget for you. And the custom actions, which we don't have any of, is where you build up your own logic, your custom action on that, and we will come to that at the moment. The configuration files over here are far more involved. They typically allow you to add special features to the application, but you are tampering with the Android and the iPhone application at a very deep level, so you really need to know what you're doing on that one, so we're not going to cover that here. We have got our project assets. So if you want to upload, say, an image, because that image is used all over the application, this is where you would do it. You can upload media. This means that it's actually held in the APK file or in the actual application. It is not looking it up from the internet. Therefore, it doesn't require internet connection, and it can sometimes be faster. Okay, API calls, very important. Again, you may be looking up, for instance, let's just create one over there. You may look up current stock prices. You may be looking up countries from around the world or flags or something like that, but you can also use it to connect with databases that aren't included over here. Any of the databases that can be accessed using the CRUD methodology can be accessed from here, and we may or may not cover that in this tutorial, but these are extremely important and powerful. Let's come over here to, actually let's go back over here, make sure that didn't. Over here we have our app states. These are variables, lists. Well, let's actually open one over here. Add a state variable. They can be one of many different things over here that keep data on the phone that is available across the whole application. I'm just going to bring your attention to one kind, which is a data type, because that is actually going to be useful when I explain something in a minute. It can be a list as well, so that fundamentally means that you can put a lot of information into an app state. You can also decide whether it's persisted or not. If it's persisted, that means that if you close down the app and open it up again, it'll be the version that was last saved to that app state, and that can be very useful. Sometimes you don't want to, you want it to reset. Now, data types are very important, so I'm going to explain those after I've done the database. Now, the database is really also quite self-explanatory. I've got products, orders, and I did a Amazon-style filtering. There's also a tutorial on that on my channel. Go and have a look. Now, if you have a list of the type, data type over here, then you can actually create a data type over here that has many mixed different kinds of fields in it. So for instance, you could in that hold name, line 1 of address, line 2 telephone number, etc. in that data type, and then you could allocate that data type over here as a list. And this is actually a very good alternative to using sub-collections, which I'm going to come on to. So if there are instances when, for instance, you want to hold a lot of data of different types, it's good to create a data type. And it is quite interesting that you can use, when you're creating the data type over here, you can actually use a JSON output, which is useful if you have a complex structure and you have the JSON format of that. It'll actually create the data type for you. Very, very useful. Moving up, so we covered the database here. You can manage the content here. You can add new records, although fundamentally it's actually a hell of a lot quicker if you just go in and create an add product within the application itself. Over here we have basically what's going to happen when you first come up with the application. You can see it'll give you a kind of tree of what's going on. Widget tree, incredibly important, as for the selector over here. Now the selector over here, if we're going to have a look at what's available, this is what's available is pages and these components. This is just pages, this is just components, so you can filter out to see which ones you want. And this one actually is quite new and I hadn't seen it before. It's really useful. It'll actually display all of the things that you've got there going, and if you want to leap to, for instance, this one, you just click on it and it opens up, and that's on the add product one, which is a component. Now let's carry on, shall we? What have we got going on over here? Help, shortcuts, search is quite useful if you're looking for something in particular. It uses keywords there. Links, never really used it, and probably the pièce de resistance is everyone's all been waiting for, which is how do you create a component or a page using AI. Now, just to give you by way of example, I use sketch to component here, and I uploaded an image, and that image was actually a screenshot from another application Okay, a little bit naughty, but I'm not going to use it in its entirety. And this is what it generated. It generated an exact replica of that menu, which is a slide menu. Now I'm obviously going to go in, and I might keep the design on that, but I'm obviously don't want all of these. But it is a neat way, and I do recommend using images and not trying to sketch it out by hand. It doesn't work that well. And there are also a lot of cases where it simply won't do what you're doing. You're going to have to do it manually. Now let's have a look at a particular page. So let's have a look at the home page over here, and we're going to look at the widget tree. Now the widget tree is incredibly important here. It is basically the structure of your page. Starting at the top column, which means that the containers below it are all going to be in a column format. As you can see in this particular case, I put into a container a component, and you can access that component over here. So that's going to slot that in, and there is that component. And that component exists here as a much more complex widget tree, which might be better for the purposes of our demonstration over here. So we have the overall container at the moment. We have our tab bar with, and this is part of the application that we can go through. And we have our price list here, which is yet another component. It's this component over here where we can add and subtract items that we're going to be adding to the order. We can go back to where we were before from here, and we've got a place order. Now on the tabs bar over here, we actually have the price list put in 3 times because I'm going to use a conditional visibility so that in the food category we only see food, in the drinks we only see drinks, and in the cocktails, kind of drink I know, but it requires preparation, goes in the cocktails. And so we use a conditional visibility over here, and you can see that it's filtering it out. So basically over here, when we go back to the tabs, that's why we need 3 different price lists, because they'll be filtering out on drinks, cocktails and food. Okay, then let's start building. We're going to come here and we're going to create a new project, and we're going to do that project. We are not going to base it on any existing template, so we're going to start, we're going to give it a name. So I'm going to call that Chaotic Beach Bar. Hold on, as I feel that. Chaotic Beach Bar, start building. Okay, we're going to skip all of that. We've got ourselves a page here, but the first thing we're going to do directly is go and set up our Firebase. Now, our Firebase is set over here, and we're going to use the built-in system of create the project over here. Now, just to remind you, you've got to be on the Blaze plan for that to work, and also you've got to have enough free Blaze plan projects available. If you run out, you've got to ask for more. I think the initial plan is maybe 5 or 6. I had to ask for some more. And anyway, we're going to connect our project here. The Firebase project region, I am in the United States, so I will set the region, and it's asking me to sign in for Google, which I'm going to do. This will allow FlutterFlow to access the Firebase console at the back end. Now, I've actually had to switch to the web version of this for my login details to come up over here. I think that's a slight bug. I was in the desktop version, but I'm just going to carry on with this process over here, and we select my Google account over here, and momentarily down the bottom it said that the project is being created. So let's just let that happen. Took about 60 seconds, then we started to get this message. So it looks as though things are on course. We can see it says 3 to 5 minutes, so obviously I'm going to put that on pause while it happens. It'll definitely save you 3 to 5 minutes of time, though, I have to say. Okay, after less than 5 minutes, I have to say, we get this wonderful message here that says Firebase project created. So that was all tremendously successful, and over here we are going to enable authorization on Firebase, and we are going to enable storage on Firebase. But before we do that, let's go and open up the Firebase console here and see what it's done in the background. Now, because we're logged in, that should take me through to the chaotic beach bar over here, and we're going to take a look at, that's the project overview over here, and we're going to take a look at the actual database itself. 1 second while I do that. We go for the all products over here, and we can see Cloud Firestore is there, and we see that we've got ourselves an empty collection here of data. Now, also we did notice over here that it's got a couple of extras over here, which saves us having to do it in the back end. So we are going to enable authorization, and I see it takes us through to this page, and we do want some authentication going on, and the authentication we're going to use is the email and password. So we're going to enable that, and we're going to save that there. We could have loads of other different ways of logging in, including Google, Facebook, Apple. Those are a little bit more complex, and they typically require that you have developer accounts. So we're not going to do that yet. Actually, Google does not, but I know that Apple does. So we're not going to do that now. So we're going to go back here to the so we enable authorize that, and we're going to enable storage, and it's going to do something very similar. I'm going to go there, and it's going to say storage. We're going to use storage, upgrade your project billing plan. Okay, well, I'm just going to have to follow the instructions on that. That'll be particular to a use case, I'm quite sure. Actually, all it's doing is saying which billing plan do I want that associated with. So you've already created the Blaze, you're already on the Blaze plan. You want to create a billing method on that, and so I'm going to use that one, my billing account, and that's all I need to do. Oh, well, you can put a budget in there as well. It's got $25. That seems like a, oh, it doesn't. Let's put in $25. Better safe than sorry, and we're going to continue on that. Link the billing account, and you will now be charged. Remember, up until about 50,000 users, that's going to be nothing really. Okay, so we've done that. Now you should see that we can go back to not to AI, to the all products there, and if we click on the well, if we click on any of these, they get added actually to the menu up here, which is kind of useful. So it's like a adds the shortcut over there. So well, authentication is already done, and we just want to put in Firestore, so we see that one as well. There it is, Cloud Firestore, and we can see that they've now all been added over here. So on the authentication, we're just going to go and check we've done that. Firestore database, we've set that up, zero collection, so we're ready to carry on building. Okay, I note over here that we've not deployed our Firebase storage rules here. That basically decides who can and who cannot save stuff to your storage. Now, storage, by the way, is used for larger files such as video files and images, whereas Firestore is really documents, so it's generally speaking entirely text. So we do want to deploy that, otherwise it's simply just not going to work, and that will take a couple of seconds. Now, I did actually get a not deployed error over here when I did it, so I'm just going to go and double check by going back up to the console to see that we've properly set up the storage. I don't see it in the list over here, so let's double check. Here it is, storage. I see, when we did that process to get started, we didn't complete it. US Central is fine for me. Continue. It's going to start in production mode. It's going to create its own rules there. We're actually going to end up overwriting those, in fact. But now I think we're going to find that when we go back to FlutterFlow, it now creates what we call a bucket over here. A bucket is where you just tip into it all your media files and such like. So now we have got storage over here. We should find that if we go back over to FlutterFlow and we deploy, that is going to work. and a few seconds later it did. So that's the trick there. Now I'm going to be using the prototype that I did earlier only for its design aspects. Okay, I'm not going to use any of the code in there because that wouldn't really be terribly helpful to you, would it? But I am going to do that because we're going to move on now in a minute to the database, and we're going to see what we're trying to do here. We've got these different filters here for the different drinks, cocktails and food. Over here we can add and subtract the quantity of each of those. And what is notable about these, because we're going to run into the code there, is that as one goes through the drinks, we'll put that up to 6, go back to the cocktails, obviously it's still remembered the place you were before, and that's not actually something that it'll do automatically. And we've got an add product over here. So what we're going to have a look at first is we're going to look at what the structure of the database is going to be based on what we know. Now we know that this is going to be a single beach bar, and in that beach bar we're going to have the orders. So that would be, this is an order basically. When you're adding 2 mojitos and 3 pina coladas, we're going to have the list of products. So that would be the entire list of everything that's in it. In this case there are 6, there could be 66, and we are probably going to have a table as well. So we're going to set those up. Now the point is, because this is a single beach bar with multiple users potentially on it, we are going to be creating this as a collections here as sub-collections of the users. Now the reason why we're doing that is because we do not want the information to bleed across into somebody else's beach bar further away in a different town. Okay, so that is what we're going to do. So over in the database over here, we're going to create, we've got no collections here, we're going to create, the first thing we're going to create is actually a users collection. It's not a sub collection, and we're going to create that. Now it usefully comes up with this message to say we're going to create a user collection. User collections are slightly different from all the other ones. Would you like to pre-populate it with default user fields? Actually, yes, we will do. And we can always come through and we can change those at any later date. Okay, now for the other ones, we're going to add to it, we're going to add the orders and the products, definitely. And we're probably going to add the tables as well. A table being, table on the left-hand side, the middle, the right-hand side, table 1, 6, 9. However the customer is going to label those things. So they're going to want to name those differently. We're going to add actually 3 sub-collections to the users. So under the users here, we are going to create 3 more collections here. One of those is going to be called products. It is a sub-collection this time, and then we're going to tell it it's a sub-collection of what users. Okay, going to create that, and we're going to create another one. I know we're going to get an error because we haven't filled anything in for here. We're going to do another one for products, orders and tables. Again, orders as a sub-collection as before, and there we have it, our 3 sub-collections: products, orders and tables. Okay, so obviously we've got to populate these fields with what we want. Now the products are going to be things like image, name, price and things like that, whereas orders is going to be incredibly simple. It's also going to have the line item quantity in there. Tables, we're sort of going to leave that for the moment, but basically that would be table name, I think, is all we really want to do to identify which table a particular order should be delivered to. Now we can, in the case of products, it kind of sort of choose template collection products here. I tend to find that when we do that, we end up deleting more than we keep, which is what I'm going to do now. So I'm going to delete the ones that we don't want and add the ones that we do. Just delete the ones with these trash can over here. Note there is no quantity in the products. That would be in the orders, so we can delete that as well. And we're going to add one other, which is into which list does this particular product going to fall. And our choices are drinks, cocktails, and food. Now we're going to not do this by name. We're going to do this actually by the tab index number. So that's actually going to be an integer. We've missed product image, so I'll add that. And I think I will add the text version of the product type in there for good measure. I'm pretty sure that at some stage we might need it, and we can add that to the database, and if we don't use it, it doesn't really matter. So that would be the product type, except done as a string: drinks, cocktails, food. Adding orders are going to be fairly similar in principle. I'm just going to add them all and explain why we have some differences. Okay, this is what I suggested it looks like, nothing too complicated. In a particular order, we're going to have name, description, table ID, completion status. We're going to come to line items, order list in a minute. I'll tell you we're going to add a few more in there, hold on. Actually, we're not. That is it. You're going to say, oh, but where is the quantity? That's all going to be in the line items order list. But I do not want to create the line items order list here until I have created a data type. This is where you're going to understand potentially the value and the power of data types. I want this to create a list of mixed field items, and there's going to be one for each item that has been ordered by that customer. So we're not going to do that there. That's why I'm not going to tick this. We're actually going to create it over in the data types. Now, setting up the data type is very, very similar to setting up a normal collection or sub-collection. We give it a name, and we then start adding the items to it. And I'll explain to you how this works in a sec. We'll call the data type table order, and we're going to create that, and we're going to start adding fields just as we did before. And I'll do that and we'll come back. One thing's nice about a table order is if you make a typo, you can actually go in and change it without having to delete it and start again. So that looks to me to be the a table order. There would be a line item quantity, the name of it. Do we want the description there? I don't think so. We want the product item price, its quantity, and its image. So ultimately, we are ordering 5 pina coladas. So pina coladas, 5. The price is $15, and here's a picture of it. Now this is where the magic really starts. We can go back to our orders here and we can see, well, this is the entire order, but it doesn't have any items in it. So here we are going to add another field. We are going to call that order list, and the data type is data type, and you can see we can now put a table order in there. Now the magic is there are several line items per order. So is this a list? Yes, it is. And that's how we get multiple line items into a single order. Okay, let's continue with our filling out of this application. We've got absolutely no pages or widgets. Notice how we spent all the time setting everything up in advance. So this is well advised, particularly the database. Save you a lot of time in the long run. Now, we want to do one thing over here is we want to look at the authentication here, and we notice we haven't actually enabled authentication in FlutterFlow. We enabled it in the back end. So we're going to do that, and that's going to mean that we have 2 pages here that represent the page when we are unlogged in. Now that's going to be a login page, and we're going to use the built-in template for that comes with FlutterFlow. And then we're going to go, where is that going after the person logged into? Actually, in our case, it's going to go to what I call a page redirect. In other words, it's a sort of empty page, and it's going to pick up whether that person is a waiter working in the kitchen or behind the bar, and it's going to take them to a different view depending on what their role is. So that's basically how we do all of that. Now we don't need to worry about anything else there. So it seems logical here that we should add a new page, and this will be this one or this one. They're basically similar. Using my theme, yes, we're going to call that login. That's login or sign up, and we're going to create the page. Swiftly going to go on and create a new page over here. That page is going to be a blank page, and this is going to be called redirect. Create that page, and in the redirect we might as well take a look at that now. When you go to the widget, we're actually going to put nothing in the redirect, so we're actually going to take that out. There, we're going to delete that. And we're also going to delete the app bar. There's literally nothing in it, nothing. Yet what we're going to do is we're going to take that page and we are going to add an action to it. And on that action, it's going to be on page load. And the action we're going to do is we're going to redirect. We are going to navigate to another page, and we're going to navigate here to the home page. That is not how we're going to finish it. We're going to say, if you're this, we'll go to the home page. If you're that, we're going to go somewhere else. But we're going to just do that initially. Now, I've got a couple of errors. We need to go and take a look at how to fix them. Well, we know all about that error already, because basically that's here because we now have our pages available to be able to set up on the authentication. Our initial page is the login page, and the next page is going to be a redirect. Now that redirect is actually set to go to the home page automatically at the moment, which is how we're going to start off. Okay, if we go and have a look at the widget tree now, just to let you know that these pages, these folders here, allow you to organize your structure in a much better and more readable way. You can add a folder over here. At the moment this is called pages. Well, we might change that in a minute and swap them around, but that's what that's all about. Now we probably just want to see whether we can get to sign up and to sign in to our project straight off the bat. So I'm going to wire up the login page. Quite often I leave the wiring up of pages until the design is done, but in this case we just want to really check progress, so we're going to do that now. It's also worth noting that because we've used the built-in template of FlutterFlow, we've got some nice features here. If we go into a wider view, we get an image going on, and there is actually a light view and a dark view of that. So let's just start with wiring up our sign up side of this tab, and you're going to see on the create account, this is really where everything happens in this action. Now FlutterFlow again have put that action basically in for us, so it has really picked up the fields automatically. The email is the type of authentication that we're using. It's picked up the email address create, which is over here, that field. It has picked up the password create, which is that, and it's picked up the password confirm, that is that. So we don't actually have to do anything here. That should work straight off the bat. Now let's go and have a look and see whether it's done the same for the sign in. That again is going to have another action on there. I suspect it will have done all of that for us as well. Let's go and have a look at the action there. For the login, we've got an email. The action is a login. The email address and password. It has a navigate automatically. It means it's going to go on to, in our case, the redirect page straight after. So that actually means that this is all wired up. So we can probably go in and test to see whether we can create a new account. Now, actually, before we do that, because I've done this so many times and forgotten this particular step, we do need to make sure that we've set up our permissions correctly on who can do what. Not to be confused with these permissions here. We're talking about really the the Firebase permissions, which are found here. That is under the database icon over here, and under these settings. It would be better perhaps if they were put along with the other ones over here, but they're not. And that's where they are. You can see that our Firebase rules are not deployed. Now we're going to allow for, in each of these cases, you've got basically authenticated users can create products, orders, and tables. So that's correct. The only one that is different from all the rest, and if you think about it, it has to be, in order to create a user collection, so the users itself here, that's got to be everyone. Because if we set it to be an authenticated user, then only people who've actually already logged in can create an account, and that's nonsensical. So I'm going to go through and set all of these to be authenticated users, possibly the delete. I'll set to no one on that, and that's going to ensure that the account creation isn't blocked by not having the correct permissions. So I'm just going to finish that off. Okay, so we've set all of them to be authenticated users, except delete, which we're going to say no one, although obviously the admin's going to want to be able to do that, but we'll just set that for good measure at the moment, except for the creating a user here, which we are going to allow everyone to do so that we're not blocking the account creation. We then deploy that, and a couple of seconds later we deploy that. That is actually a back-end process, so you can actually change these and not have to sort of rebuild the application every time you do it. It's very quick and it's already done. Now that's interesting. I've just noticed that if I come out of the permissions there and come back in again, that oh yes, it is set up as I wanted. I'm going to change that not from no one. I'm going to change that also to authenticated users. I actually think that's going to come and bite us in the backside later on, because we're not going to be able to delete products and orders, and that would be wrong. So we're going to just redeploy that. Okay, let's give it a spin. Let's see if I can sign up. Okay, moment of truth. And bingo, and we've come through to this page here. Just to be totally sure that the redirect worked, I'm going to change that page title just to be home for the second, so we can refresh the page and we see that we do. So the redirect worked. Remember, the first page that we had going on here was in fact the redirect page, and not this page, redirect. So the redirect did work. Okay, I'm going to rename this home page to be the order view, because that's what it's going to be, and I'm going to create two more pages, the kitchen view and the bar view. I am now going to remove the page title from each of these because they're not part of my design. I've now tidied up here. I've renamed the folder views and put the bar view, the kitchen view and the order view into it. Okay, I rather annoyingly started designing the order view page while I thought I was recording, but I wasn't. But I've done so little on it that I think I'm not going to go back and start again. All I've really done on here is we've got a column, we've got a container here, and into this container we're going to put the tabs, and we're going to have a button at the bottom here which is going to be to place the order. We've got below it an add product button. Here the width is restricted to a maximum width of 300, so that when we come out here it doesn't get hugely wide, and that is about it that I've done at the moment. So on this container here, since we're going to have another button on there, we're going to want to add another column, and we're going to want to have two more containers, one for the tabs Now we do not want to set the background color on that, and we do want that to be of infinite width, and therefore we can probably duplicate that with a Control D over here, and we can make that bigger. Now I'm going to make that bigger by a fixed amount initially, but I think when we populate that, what we're going to, my apologies, wrong one. Let's bring this back up here. This is actually for the button, isn't it? And so this container here, we're going to bring this one down to a fixed height. We'll probably remove the fixed height on that at some point, because we want it really to be the height of the number of items that are in that list. So that is basically it there. Now I notice on this button here, we may well want to use that button, certainly the design of that button, over and over again, and it might be worth adding that as theme widget. So we'll highlight the button, and over here we can save as a theme widget, and we'll just call that button. So we'll create the style, which means that when we come to this here, we can add a new button there. You know, that's not what we want. So we go and we apply the theme widget to that. Okay, now it is the full width, so we'll do what we did with the other one, and we will restrict the width. I believe we did that to 300, the maximum width here. There we go, that's the same-ish. The height of the ad product, let's try and get that consistent as well. That's 40. Let's put this therefore also in as 40. My mistake, 100. We can, even though this is a theme widget, still carry on and name it whatever we like. So that's going to be place order, and I suggest that we give this a different color because it's slightly confusing if it's the same. That seems okay to me. Now over here in the top container, we're going to be putting our tab widget, which is called a tab bar, and we are going to label this correctly, and in a minute we're going to build up the column here, which is going to have the list of items that the customer can purchase. We'll play around with the formatting a bit. Selected color, unselected could be that grey color there, and so 2 to the underlining bar. Weight, should make it a bit thicker. There we go. Okay, looking good. Now, I don't think it always looks fantastic to have this on the desktop view stretching out super wide. It doesn't look too bad here, but as a little tip, what we can do is we can wrap this column in a container like this, and then we can restrict the width, the maximum width of this container to be, say, 500. Okay. Oh, minimum width, my mistake. Maximum width, 500. And you notice that's all shifted across over here. Let's make that a bit larger. Let's make that 700. And you notice it's not in the center. We can fix that very easily by using the alignment. And there we go. So on the, that's the mobile, then we kind of restrict the width deliberately here so it doesn't really spring out too far on either side. It's optional, but it's a little trick. Now, what we have on the tabs, we have tab view 2, sorry, 1, there, 1, not letting me do it, 1, 2 and 3, each of these tab page 3. Now these are all going to be identical except for the filtering. Consequently, we definitely want that to be a widget, because this is a reusable widget that we're going to put in 3 times, and we're going to change the index, we're going to change the view filtering on that so that it shows just drinks, cocktails and food. So what we'll do is we'll make one of these tab pages design the way that we want, and then we'll convert that into a reusable widget, and then we'll copy that across to the other 2 slots. Now I noticed that we started here with a column. They actually recommend that we don't do that. They actually recommend that we start off with a list. And I'm going to be absolutely frank with you, I have absolutely no idea why, except I do know that it'll flag up as a warning over here suggesting that lists are better than columns for this particular use case. Now within that that column, we're obviously going to have, that list, we're going to have a container, and in that container we're going to have each of the elements that we need in that list, and they're going to be each of the products with an plus or minus button on there to take the order. Okay, just for the record, I could have gone back to my prototype and had a look at that particular widget, which is the one that we're going to replicate in the current project. The reason why I'm just, what we could have done is we could have come over to the item to add here, and we could, let's just go back to here, we could have saved over here this row to be a custom widget, a reusable custom component, or this one here, save widget block as a template that you can reuse across projects. So I could have reused it, but I'm not going to, because there are several things about it. One, we're passing parameters to it, and 2, we have an action on here. So I'm actually going to build that from scratch over here, and I'm going to do that right now. We will start with a row. Into that row we will add an image. We will also add a container, and to that container we're going to add a column like this, and then to the top container here we are going to add the counter, which is here. That is to the row. We are going to add the counter. We are going to take that row, we're going to spread them all out, and then we're going to take that image and we're going to make that, say, 70 by 70 so that it's square. Now this central column here, which is going to have the name and the price, we want that to really fill as much space across here as possible, and we can do that with this flex alignment. So that will now take up pretty much all of this space, kind of irrespective of what viewport we're looking at, and that is really what we want. Now in this column we're going to add 2 texts. And one of them is going to be the name and the other one is going to be the price, and they're both going to be texts. If we look at the original design over here, we'll have that grey, looks a bit dingy, but we will make that turquoise. We will spread them vertically fairly evenly like this, and we'll justify them to the left so it looks like that, and then we'll rename and format these texts. We'll take this row and give it a bit of spacing. Let's give it 5 at the beginning and end. Maybe 10. That looks good. Let's take the background color off and off this one as well. And put a border around the whole thing. And there we go. We'll take the whole of this container and we'll convert that to a component. Add item. And there now is our component. Expand that out to infinity and you can see that it is the same as before. Now, because we want to set values here, which is going to be here the name, the price and the image, we need to pass parameters to it. And I'll show you how we do that now. Click into space over here and you see that we can add parameters. So we're going to add those 3 parameters: image URL, name and quantity. Sorry if I said quantity, I meant price, and that one's the only one that's a double. So we've got a URL, price and a double going on there, and then we confirm that. Now I might point out that we didn't put any default values in there, which perhaps we should have done, and in fact it is telling us actually it's not telling us that quite yet. Now just to be clear on passing parameters, our parameters are requested by the widget that needs them. Okay, so we put them in that widget and we're going to see that wherever we put that, it's going to say, could you please provide us with what those actual values are, which is why we're coming up with the 3, because they're not set anywhere else. So we're going to do that. So if we now go back to the order view and we highlight the add item over here, we'll see that we are required to put in the image URL, the name and the price, and we are going to do that in due course. Now the other thing I want to do fairly early on is I want to add a product because we're not going to be able to see this list until we have some products in there, and we certainly don't want to do that by hand. Now we're going to have that add product as its own widget. So I've created this widget already and I called it add product. So I did it using the new widget button at the top over here. I don't think I'm going to replicate that in front of your very eyes because it is very, very basic. We have a text field. That's where we're going to put in the name of the product. We have a text field over here, which is where we're going to put in the price. And we have got a radio button. Which type of product is it? A drink, a cocktail, or a food? And then we have a container here which has a row in it, so we can put the image in, and we can also an icon which indicates we're going to upload and save the image that's going to be used there. And I have another container over here, so I obviously haven't quite finished that off. And to that we're going to add a button. It's going to be that big long button over there, but that button we are going to apply our theme widget over here. And it looks like it's got a bit too much padding and it's also a bit wide, so I'm going to fix that, and then we are going to carry on. We've given the top side a bit of item spacing, which we could do in the column, and we've got the start spacing to give it a bit of breathing space at the top there. Otherwise that looks complete. Just to remind you that the reason why this is a component is because the bottom sheet that we're going to be using on this is instigated from an action, and the action takes a component. Okay, let's give some functionality to this save button. That is clearly going to be an action, and the add action is going to be the creation of a document. So we are going to go into Firestore and we're going to create a document. And the collection of that is going to be products. And the user reference, that's quite important. That means that we're not going to be looking at creating a document in any other place except the authenticated user collection over here. And then we're going to add the fields. And what we'll do is we'll just put them all in, because these really all do need to be filled out. And there's going to be one that is slightly more complicated than the others, which is the tab index, which we will come to in a sec. Most of these are hugely self-explanatory. Name, we're not actually going to put in a description here. Let's not do that. A price, created at, that's going to be current timestamp. The tab index, which is going to be the index 012 on that, which is why we need to have potentially a bit of conditional logic going on there. The product image, which is going to go in here, and the product type, which can be the words drinks, cocktails, and food. I'll do the first one here, and I think I'll just go through all the other ones. We're looking at the widget state, and we're looking at the text field of the name. Do the same for the price. I'll go through them all until we get to that conditional logic I mentioned. Created at is a global property, current time. The product type comes from the radio button here. That's fairly simple. Now for the tab index product type, we're going to do that from a variable, but we're going to do that as a conditional. Okay, so the first condition is going to be, there is going to be single conditions as first condition. It's going to be if the radio buttons equals drinks, then 0, cocktails, then 1, food, then 2. So I'm going to do that now. So radio button equals drinks, 0. Then we're going to carry on with each of these other ones until we've got all three of them in. So just to be clear on this one, even though this is a condition, a multiple condition, you still have to put in a single condition to define the other conditions. It'll become obvious when you try. So there we have it. We have drinks is 0, cocktails is 1, just to save a bit of time. Otherwise it's going to be food because there are only 3 options. That'll be number 2, and we can confirm that. Now the product image requires a little bit of thought because until we upload one, we haven't really got an image here. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to create a page variable over here, add a field, and I'm going to call that uploaded product image, and then we're going to use that and put in a placeholder until we've actually uploaded an image. So there is the local component state. It's an image path, and it gives us the opportunity here of putting in a placeholder for an image, which is a URL. So I'm going to go and find a suitable one. Okay, and we can confirm all that. I put in a dummy placeholder. I'm going to go and find a proper free image to put in there. Forgot to set it here. We're now going to do that. That's going to be a component state, uploaded image, and there we go. Now we've still got our 3 errors over here because we haven't passed anything to this widget yet. So we need to do a query to go and get our products. Okay, so the initial query has to come quite high up in the widget tree, and that is because we need to be able to create the children on the list view. So we're going to do it on this one over here. We're going to add a query from this database symbol over here. Query collection, it's going to be the products, and we're not all the sub collections, only the ones that are in that particular user, that beach bar. That's the user reference there. It's not a single document. it is a list of documents, and we could do our filtering here, and if necessary, and we might, we can come back and do that, but we're going to confirm that initially. And that allows us to go down to the list view over here, and we see that we've got this, which is create dynamic children. Okay, so we've got to give that a name, so we'll call that item fields, because that's actually what's going to give us the fields themselves, and that is going to come from the product documents. Okay, here, notice it's plural, and we can confirm that, save that here, and once again we've got this create dynamic children, which is what we want, and that allows us now on the add item to go down here and select not from the product documents but now the item field items. We can go and get the product image, we can go and get the name, and we can go and get the price, and notice that the price is a double because it could be 15.99. So on our add product button over here, we're going to create an action on tap, and that action is going to be a bottom sheet. Here, bottom sheet, we're going to show it. We are going to select our component, and our component is going to be add product, and we will deal with the other parts of this if we feel necessary. Okay, after quite a lot of playing around, I got the add product to do roughly what I want over here. We can put in a name, we can put in a price, we can select that as a food. We're not going to worry about the upload button at the moment. We're going to save that, and if we come out of that, we can see that we've got a new product over here, and it's not wired up correctly, I know. Let's go and find it. Food, index type product 2, that was good because that's quite important. I never knew that was a real image. I don't even think it is, but seems to have given us one anyway. And what we'll do is we will delete that document because it's baloney. What we now need to do is to wire up the actual prices over here. It's fairly simple. Okay, for instance, the name comes from the name, default value, product item, same for this one, price, default value 0, and image URL, we may find now that the default image is not set. We'll come back to that. Okay, I've grabbed an image from Unsplash. The path is going to be set back to that image URL. The difference being is that we can now set a default value there, confirm that, and we should be done. It will mean there's a beer symbol for all of them until we fix and do the upload image button. So what we also need to do to get this image to work is to change to ensure that the uploaded image here, which is a state variable, a page variable, is set. So we're going to have to add another action. That action goes above this one, and it's going to be a state management. We're going to update the component state, add the field image, and in that we're going to set the value. We're going to set that to our free image that we got before. so that now in the second bit, which is to create the document, we'll already have an image in there. And in this case, you see we've got a little beer icon going on, so that's correct. We do need now to get rid of these other ones that don't have an image because they're distorting. Just add another product to be sure. We'll put back Stella, put a price of $15.50, reassuringly expensive. Drinks, the image, save. What we want to do is to make sure that those fields clear. And there we go, Stella, $15.50, and our counter. Now we haven't copied across our widget to here or here, and we do not have our filter set yet. So even if I added a cocktail here, it would appear in the main list. Let's do that now. We really have three options for the filtering here. We can either put the filtering here on the query itself, which we would do in here as a filter. For that to work across all of them, we need to make sure that this query here is high enough in the tree to capture all of these tabs here. And if perchance we had put it too low down, this button over here on the right, you could move it up to a higher container, the next container that will allow it. And that's what I had to do actually earlier on, so that this query now serves all the tab bar pages over here. We could put it in the list view over here. It would be a very, very similar piece of logic. We'd put it in here, no further changes. We would filter the list items there. Or we could do it, alternatively to that, on the list item here, and we could do that as a conditional visibility. Again, the logic would be exactly the same. That would be a single condition. Is the index here equal to the index in the database of the product item? Now, why would we put them in different places for different reasons? Well, firstly, let's just imagine up here that we're talking about this query here. Now, the point about this query is, say you've got a database of 30 items and you're only going to show 10. If we do the query up here, it's going to give you 10 items. Okay, they're already going to be filtered. That is 10 read operations against your database. So that's going to cost you 10 clicks if you like. Now that's not significant. It's only 6 cents per 100,000 and you've got your free tier. But just imagine now that you had a 100,000 items on your menu. Obviously you wouldn't. Okay, and you were doing the filtering down here on the list down to 10. All right, well the query up here, the filtering down here your query would do 100,000 records. You're paying for 100,000, okay, and then you're filtering down to 10. That's terribly inefficient. The other thing you could also do is you can do the ordering up here as well. So if we go in there and edit, you can do an ordering. Now you do not want to order a lot of records down in the list view over here, because it is not designed to do that. It's going to take you an unordered list and then it's going to try and order that correctly on your phone. I think unless you've got a list of about 10 items, that would be fine. But as soon as you get over that, you are really going to run into trouble with resources. So bearing all of that in mind, I think the best place to put it is on the query at the top over here. And as I said, that was relatively simple. You come in here and you do your filter. You've got your you do your filter, and the filter one, oops, there, the filter, got to go into it. It's going to say if the tab index product type, which is coming from the database for that item, is equal to, and then we're coming into the widget state, which is the tab bar current index, this one up here, current index, then we are going to show that. The other thing about doing an ordering here, by the way, is it'll create something called an index. Now, an index basically is kind of, think of it like a copy of that particular collection of your database, except it's pre-ordered. All right, so it doesn't actually take the 10,000 records and then start ordering them, it goes to an index of it where they're already pre-ordered. We're not going to do any ordering here anyway, but if it does, it's going to create indexes elsewhere, which you need to keep up to date. So we can confirm that. Now, because that's up here, it's going to be able to feed each of these list views. So all I need to do now is copy this container from this tab bar into each of these tab bars, and then we can go and test. So let's take that container. We're going to copy that, and we're going to paste that over the top of the column. See if it'll let us do that. And it didn't like that, so we're going to have to remove that column and then try again. Okay, so I've done that. We now have our list on each of them. It is time to check to see that we have a filtered list now, and maybe add some products to see whether it comes into the right filter. Okay, that seems to have worked. Teeny bit sluggish on that old filtering there, but let's assume that if I add a cocktail into that, because there's so much to replace the current rendering of the view, then that will speed up. So let's do that now. No idea how you spell pina colada, but that's my best shot. Save that. Click into open space. Ah, there we go. Drinks cause pina colada. As I say, a teeny bit sluggish. If we think that's a problem, we could always move the filtering to visibility. That might be faster, but I won't do that for the second because we'll see how that is in a real life situation. I think it'll be a lot faster. This is debug is what I'm basically saying, so it will be slower. We'll add some French fries. Oh, I put them in drinks by accident. I'm going to change that to food and delete it from the back end. We should have this clear, shouldn't we, every time we save an item. So we're now going to have it in two places, which is not right. But still, we've got it in drinks. French fries, that's incorrect, but it'll also be in food. So I'll remove it from drinks. We really need a delete button here as well, but I'll remove it from the back end. Okay, there we go. Cocktails, food. Now, there is an issue here, and I'll show you what it is. Whenever we move from the tab items at the top here, it's going to re-query the view on each of these on the cocktails. And as a consequence of that, the add items field over here, I see that I've got a visibility on that. Let's take that off. That shouldn't have been there. Anyway, the problem is it's going to render this add button, add item again. So consequently, if I add a couple of items to cores, I go across to cocktails and I add one over here, go back to here, and it's reset itself back to 0. Now that's not really a problem. What we need to do is to record what the state of that particular view was, and we're going to do that really in the counter over here, and I'll show you what I mean by that, is in the add item, the counter over here, we have the ability to be able to say, what's the initial count? Well, the initial count has to be the running tally of what we're doing. So we're going to create a piece of code here that's basically going to say, right, let's look up what the state of that particular count was and make sure that we put that back as we move through the menu items. Now, the question arises now as to where we're going to hold the running tally. Now, there are a couple of options here. We could potentially, I suppose, I've done some kind of callback here. And I do want to do a callback. I really do, because I want to show you how it's done, but I've decided that's not the best place or best way of doing it. I think the best way of doing it is to keep our running tally actually in an application variable. Now, an application variable can actually circumnavigate quite a lot of the issues that one would potentially be able to solve also using callbacks. The difference being it makes that particular value available across the application instead of, for instance, higher up in the widget tree. If we go back over here, to the order view, we could make the changes that we're doing here available in this list view or even in the entire field here. So if we're keeping a running tally, we could do the callback to that and it would be available here. But I'm actually not going to do that because I don't think it's the best way of doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an application value here. So we'll add a state variable here. We're going to call this current order line items. Okay, now this is where some of the magic comes in. We are going to set this as a data type. All right, that means that all the fields are going to be correctly aligned with our table order, which is exactly what we want to do. Now, a table order is going to be a list. Okay, so that's a list of all the items, so we can create that. Now, it's not going to be persisted, which means that if they were to log out and log back in again, it would pick up the previous values. That's what that's all about. So we can create that. So if we go back here to the add item, what we're going to do is that we're going to, whenever we add something over here, we are going to add that to the application variable to keep a running tally of the orders that we've taken. We are then simultaneously going to read the value of that back into the initial count so that when we move between the tabs, it'll pick up the current value from the application variable. Sounds a bit complicated, but when I do it, you'll see that it isn't really. Okay, let's just recap on what we're doing over here. We've got our query by tab index. It's just passing the parameters to the child element, which goes on over here. We've got our counter widget here, which increments every time you hit the plus and the minus button. And then we're going to save that item to an app variable. Now, this step here we're going to come to, but basically it means if we add 1 and then we add 2, it's going to add this as a separate line item. So we've got 1 and 2. In actual fact, you want the 2 to replace the 1. So we need to remove the old count from that, and then we need to ensure that every time we move from tab to tab, we update this counter number over here to be the value that is saved in the item app variable. So first things first, we go to the count controller, we create an action, we add an action there, which is going to be the action on the state management. We're going to update the app state. The app state that field we're going to update, there is only one. It's the line items here. We are going to add to that list, and the value that we're going to add to that list is the table order. That initially simply sets the structure of the data type. We still got to add the fields. The line item quantity, that one comes from the widget state, and that is the count controller. The other two are fairly self-explanatory as well. The value of the name is there as a component parameter, and the value of the price is also there as a component parameter. Okay, so we've got all three of those. There is also the image, but we do not need the image in the order tally. So let's not do that, and let's go and see how that works when we boot that up. Okay, so we're over here, and what's a good idea on this one is to let's collapse all. We're really interested in this app state. We've got nothing in the current order items. Let's add 1 Coors beer. There we go, and suddenly we do. That's great. And we have a look at that item, and we see we've got 1 Coors at $10.20. The line item image is empty. We know about that. We don't care. All right, now let's add a Stella. And there we go. Click on it properly. And now we've got 2 line items. Perfect. But where does it go wrong? It goes wrong if I now add a Coors and I add 2 items. We now see that we've got a Coors of 1 item, and we've got a final one over here, which is a cause of 2 items. So clearly it's replacing this value with the new value that's over here and adding a line item. So what we need to do is we need to remove, in the action chain, we need to remove this first one every time that we do it. Not too difficult, but it is a custom function that's going to do that. So I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And the other thing that we see we haven't fixed yet, and I'm going to do that now, we go across to the cocktails, 0 there, go back to the drinks, and it's reset this. Now, it doesn't mean that it's lost the order in the application variable, because that's persistent, not persistent in the way that it is in the application variable, which means when you shut down the app and start it up, but it's persistent insofar as that it's not been reset in any way. Therefore, it's still there, even though these values are incorrectly displayed. So we need to now pick up this value from this value over here. Not too difficult, going to do that now. So we are going to use AI to create this function, but let's just decide what it is that it's actually going to do. What I want it to do is to say, accept the entire list of the current order items. Look at the last item in the list and go and have a look at all the previous items in the list. And if you find one where the names match, so in this case cause matches cause, return the index of that particular line item, and then we'll have the action which will remove that line item from the list. Okay, so that's what we're going to instruct the AI function to do. So if we go across here, we are going to create a custom function, and there it is, the function. It always gives it this name. You should change that as the beginning. It's kind of dynamic, but let's work through this and see how we get on. A little tip with working through the AI, it's always best to set the arguments on the right-hand side before you ask the Code Copilot to write the function. It's in the FlutterFlow instructions that you should do this, but the AI will consider everything, including the name of the function and also the arguments that you set over here. Okay, we're going to return an integer. That's going to be the index. The arguments that it's going to take is the list of line items. So that is going to be... Now this is one case where the rules of using the data type slightly break down. We're just going to call that items, but I have, but through trial and error, discovered that rather than using the data type, which I'm sure is possible, it just doesn't seem to be the easiest way of doing it. We're actually going to send to that pure JSON like this, and it is a list because it's a list of line items there. And also notice how we do not want that to be nullable, and nor do we want the integer to be nullable. That may throw up a few errors initially because the AI may not fix that for us properly, but we'll do that as we come across it. Okay, so this is the prompt that I'm going to use. Accept an argument of a list of JSON items, which refers to items in the argument over here. One of the fields in the JSON list is called name. Retrieve the last item in the list and from it the name of the item. Look through the items in the list above it and determine if there is a duplicate item by name in the list, and if there is, return the index, and if there isn't, return -1. So we're going to return a value anyway, which will solve the null error that we might have otherwise had if it does it correctly. Otherwise it's going to return, which means that if we try and remove -1, nothing's going to happen. Otherwise it's going to return the index of the duplicate item. So let's see how we get on with putting that in. There we go, and fingers crossed. This is what it came up with, and it looks good to me. Notice how to put the entire prompt here in the code. It's basically accepting, it's looking for the last item which has the value of name. It's iterating through all the previous ones before it, and it is looking for a match, and if it finds a match, it returns the index, and if it doesn't, it returns -1. If it's empty, it returns -1. So let's copy the function across, copy code into the current custom function, yes, and we are going to save the function. Don't worry too much about all this red over here. That really is actually a FlutterFlow bug. They put them in, so they are there. And we're going to save that function. It does need to be tested before we get rid of the error, and then we're going to test it actually in the, so I'm pretty sure that's going to say custom function needs testing. Usually you just click on that and it'll go off and do it itself. And there it is, spinning wheel. Let's see if it finds any syntax errors. No, it has not. That is excellent. So we've got our custom widget. We called it first matching name index. And we are now going to put that into our action chain. I might add that I have put the code into my resources section, which is on my master FlutterFlow resources page, which the link is below if you want to go and take a look. If for some reason the AI didn't create the one that you want, a copy of this one is there. Okay, so we are going to update the app state again. Okay, so we're going to add an action. We are going to do the state management. We're going to update this, update the app state, and we are going to add the field, which is the current order index. We are going to remove from list at index. Okay, so the index to remove is our custom function. We only have one. There it is. What argument does it take? It takes the JSON, which is in the app state here. Select a value. Now this is actually it's item at index. Now because there's only going to be at this stage one matching item, because we're going to do this every single time it happens. There won't be two because it'll have removed the first one. We can knowingly put that as the first option, and we are going to set that to JSON. No further changes. So remember that was a data type. We're converting it to JSON because that's what it accepts here. I did mention that you should really be able to do that from data type to data type, but I found this easier. Default variable value. I think we probably should put in maybe -1 there. I'm not 100% sure we want a default value. It may force us to. Okay, so we've now got remove the item from index. Let's go and give that a spin. Okay, I've got a build error. So we need to go back and debug that. It tells us where the error is. It's in add item. So it's not necessarily the function itself. Ignore the fact that this is the renderer. That's something else. So we know where it is. Let's go back and have a look at what's wrong with this update app state that is causing that to error. Let's do this from scratch and think again about that. So we know that it's the function there. Oh, that's correct. But let's just really run through this. We're going to map the item in list. And I believe it's... I think probably it was simpler than I thought. So just confirm that and confirm that. So what we've got, we're not returning the first in the list. That was a mistake. We are coming through to the item in the list. We're mapping the item in the list to JSON. So it just takes the JSON and it returns a value. Okay, the item in the list, the function does that on its own. So we're going to confirm that and give it another spin. Okay, well that has definitely fixed the build error. So I do think I need to recap as to what the error was. If we come through to this app state here, I had initially said that we want to return the first item in the list of the stuff that it's returning. But of course, the function itself returns an index, so why would we tell it to return the index of the first item when it's clearly incorrect? So it's much simpler. We simply need to tell it, here is the list, remove the duplicate from the list, and all we need to do is convert actually the current application variable into JSON so that it can the function can understand it. Simple as that. So now we've got this. Let's go and see how well that works. So we're going to collapse all. We're going to have a look at the app state over here. Current order line items are empty. That's correct. So we're going to add a cause. Okay. And we've got one line item, which is one cause. Now we're going to add another one. And now, bingo. We've got one line item with two. We don't have the duplicate, so we've removed the duplicate. Let's do the same with Stella. We add one Stella. Okay, we now got two line items. Okay, which is one Stella. Let's pump that up to 3. So it's going to remove it, and then it's going to remove it again. And so we've got 3 Stellas and 2 cores. Now we still have the issue. Go across over here. No pina coladas. All right. Well, we can add a pina colada here. So let's add 2 pina coladas. Come back to the drinks. It's cleared itself. We're going to fix that in a minute. So we should now see in our complete list, we've got the Coors, we've got the Stella, and this one should be a pina colada. And line item quantity of the pina colada, it says that it was 2. I can't remember what I put in, but we'll double check that that's correct. Well, let's add another pina colada. That should make it, wow, that's going to make the most recent one 1 again. Let's go and check that. So that'll be item here. Yeah, we've got 1 pina colada. So that's all correct. We now need to get it to memorize the state here. That is not actually too difficult. As I mentioned before, that is done here on the counter itself. So we need to come all the way through to the counter, and the initial count here is what we need to set. Okay, and we're going to read that from the application variable. Okay, so the trick is to get this initial count. We're going to read that from the application state, the current order list items. We are going to filter that list item, and the filter is going to be if the item in the list data structure field and the filter condition, and that's going to be a single condition, is whether the name of the item is equal to the item in list data structure field name. Confirm, and that's the condition. And available options, we do need to index this. Now, since there will only be 1, we can reliably say that is the first in the list. Available options. Data structure field. Line item quantity. Confirm. So let's try that. Okay, we've got an error. I'm pretty sure I know what that error is. Over here in that filter over there, I think we should have put a default variable value of 0. Okay, so let's confirm that and try that again. Okay, that fixed that. So let's add 1, 2 cores, go across cocktails, we have 0. Go back to drinks, lo and behold, it's remembered the 2. So now we've got a running tally for the waiter to see. Otherwise, he'd have gone bonkers going, did I put that order in or not? So it is now memorizing that phase of our development is now complete. I'm not completely happy with the speed that these pages appear when I run through. So I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to switch that. Remember that I said that I had that put on the filter was coming from the query. I'm now actually going to put that on conditional visibility and see whether that is any better. So we'll take the condition away from the query. So rather than having the filter here, that filter, we're going to remove that. And that actually has another secondary advantage. Did it actually do that? It didn't save, did it? Remove, confirm. There's a secondary advantage insofar as that as we go across these tabs, the query is actually going to be the same. So we can cache it. Okay, now what does caching mean? Cache means that it's going to remember that particular query. Do we want that across the whole app or just at this page level? I think page level is enough. And these unique keys, these are both optional, so we will not set those at the moment. And what does it not like? Oh, a query name. We haven't given it a query name, and that's just going to be products. So we'll create that cache. That will speed up that query. It should only do it once. Caches only last 10 minutes, by the way, so not terribly long, but long enough to make sure that we don't keep querying that unnecessarily. Now, therefore, we need to put the visibility. Oh, that's interesting. Still sort of there. Might have made a little mistake on that filter. It is the tab bar current index has got to be equal to the item field item from the database of the tab item products type, and we can confirm that, and we actually need to put that across all the add items there, and we can do that relatively easily, usually by going in and copying that variable. And we'll go down to this add item there. We will, it doesn't always work this actually, but let's see if it does today. And it did not like it, so let's do that by hand. It's the second field that it didn't like. So when we go down to this third one here, which actually looks like it's been set. Oh no, it hasn't been set. We know that we can paste it, but this final second value needs to be put in by hand. Item fields, item, table index, product type, confirm, error's gone, and let's have a look. And here's the result. We've got our drinks, our cocktails, there's absolutely no hesitation anymore, and our food. So that's the way we really wanted it. Check that it still memorizes, over to cocktails, add a G&T, go back to here, still got 2, and we still got our G&T, we do everything functional. So the lesson here is if you're not economizing on your queries, which we aren't because the list is so small, then a filter on visibility looks like the fastest way of doing it. Okay, just going back to the adding the order to the database here. I noticed on the orders we've got name, description, table ID. I tell you what, I'm going to not set the name, description tag. I'm only going to set, well, we can set the completion status and we can set the order list. These are going to be blank. If you think about it, that name would probably be a sequential order number that we can come to later. So if we come back over here and we're looking at this particular placing the order, we're not going to do the name, we're not going to do the description, we're not going to do the order ID. We can do the completion statement as false. That seems to be correct. And the order list is actually the most important one, because the order list is a list update type. It's going to be set the value, all right, and that value is going to be your app state there, and I think we can get away with no further changes on that. We should get rid of all of those errors. We can come back here and we can see whether we can place the order now. So let's give that a go. Let's have 3 Coors, 1 Heineken, 1 G&T, and a plate of French fries. Okay, so place order. All right, we need to go to the back end and have a look to see whether we have indeed got any orders. And indeed we have an order over here. There is the one order. What have we got in it? 3 Coors, 1 Heineken, 1 G&T, and a plate of French fries. Brilliant. Now there are quite a few other checks and balances that we need to do here. One is when we add a product, we want to clear the product fields there so that we know that it has been saved to database. Then you can carry on doing one after the other without coming out of the add product. Similarly on place order, once we place the order, we really want the this current order to set itself back to 0. Okay, so that requires clearing the application variable, or better actually is setting everything in there to 0. So we're going to do both of those things, but we're now really tidying up on the main principle of this application. So clearing the app state should be sufficient to do that. Now I've just placed this order and I noticed that it didn't clear the values, but if I go across here and come back again, it will do. So a little bit more logic in there, but it did clear the values in the application state. It just didn't get reflected here. So I'll think about that and we'll fix it. It doesn't seem like a big issue to me. Similarly on the add product, we're going to clear the values of that form when we hit the add product, so that you can put another one in and you know that the one that you've just done has been saved. So we'll clear text field 1 and 2 from there. That should do that. We should also set the component state of the image to be back to a default image, otherwise it's going to pick up the image of the last one that you uploaded. There it is on the update component state. I'm going to do that again. And of course we need now to upload the image as we go along here on this icon, so let's do that now too. Okay, so on the icon here we are going to on the icon we're going to put in an action. The action is going to be well, on tap, add the action is going to be, we're going to upload media, which is here, upload media. We're going to put either camera or gallery. If it is on a mobile phone, you'll get both options. If it's only on the web version, then you are only going to get the gallery. We'll set our width, otherwise that could become enormous. I think we can set it to 75 by 75 because I believe that's the icon size. The image quality can be, it doesn't need to be 100%. 75 should do. Where are we going to upload this media file to? It's Firebase, not local upload, which is useful for other things. Now this we haven't covered before. We can keep that name, but we're going to give that a unique name. Now they've changed this a little bit in FlutterFlow, insofar as you used to have to pick up the image URL to put that into, well, we're going to put that into the page variable for that. So now I don't think you have to do that, but let's try anyway. We'll add the action, and the action is update component state. Okay, there it is, and we've only got one component, it's the image path, and here I'm going to set the value, and let's have a look at the value. Okay, now it's under widget state over here, uploaded file URL. Okay, so no errors. I think that'll allow us now to put our own image in there. Now we do need to check that this image over here is coming from the right place, and it isn't. So the path of that image is in actual fact the component state, and it is the uploaded image. It's going to be blank there. I think we probably want, you would definitely want a default value in there. Okay, so we are now going to add a product. Let's give this a default value as well here, because you notice that it was blank. Oh gosh, that updated quickly. Okay, well, let's instant reload that anyway. Okay, I tried a couple of things and they didn't really work, so I'm going to try another trick about this default image. On the add product here, I'm going to set that there on initialization. So when we come into this, I'm going to add an action, and I'm going to update the state management of that field there, which is the uploaded image, and I'm going to put that in as this initial default value, which is of the beer. Okay, so that we got something there. If we don't do that, we tend to get this thing with a null value. Now I think it's a bug in FlutterFlow because I've set the defaults everywhere, but this is a workaround. Okay, I've added a red cocktail. Let's switch that to cocktails. Now it's not erroring over here, but it doesn't mean that we can't still upload the image that we want. And we're going to do that as wine, even though I've called it a red cocktail to go into cocktails. I'm going to save that, and that also isn't exactly what I wanted. So let's go and have a look at the back end. Okay, it has got the correct one, and I do now know why it set that back to the beer, because we've cleared out these fields. It's waiting for another item to be added, so that's actually correct. So if we come out of that and we go into our cocktails and we see we've got a red cocktail, we've got the correct image in there, so done. We want to have on the app values over here, we want another app value, and that is going to be the role. Okay, the role of the person, whether they're a waiter working in the kitchen or they're working at the bar, and that will be a string, and that will be persisted. Now what that means is that if someone logs in from their phone, they're going to see their role, and if someone else logs in from their phone or from the website, they'll see their role. That's what persisted means. So we can create that, and I think we will give that the default value of waiter. Now we've got that, we can go back to our initial views. And if you remember, we had our redirect. Okay, that redirect, we simply made sure that it redirected every single time to the order view. Now we're going to put in some conditions there, so I'm going to do that. So if the role is equal to waiter, we can confirm that. We are going to, and we can cut this cut this, and if that's true, we're going to paste that here. Now we're going to switch on the conditional action. We're going to make that multiple, so we're going to do actually the same as that, except it's going to be role as waiter, bar, and kitchen. Do that over here. Else if, This is what it looks like: complete, order view, bar view, kitchen view. If it appears to be none of those or it can't work it out, it'll send us to the order view. And the only other thing is that we do not want to allow back navigation. We do not want the back button to take us back to the redirect page, which is fundamentally empty. Now the kitchen view is going to be a list of orders filtered by food and probably ordered by the incomplete ones first. So here's the initial query. We're doing a same as before, really, user reference on the orders. We are going to only select the user record, so that particular beach bar, and this time we are actually going to order it here, increasing based on completion status. Now I don't know whether that's going to put true or false at the top. Let's see, T, F, F we want, it's probably right. We might have to swap that around. So we confirm that. And I would say, remember I mentioned before that we've got that order here. I think I'm going to pump that up to the, right into the kitchen view up here, because I think that's too low down. So that's a nice little neat trick of what we can do there. And then on the list view here, we use this children, and we create some children. I actually had to do that a second time to get this, and that is the critical thing, because we want to ensure that the list has children. And I can't immediately see that to be true yet, possibly because this container is not tall enough. There we go. And there is nothing in this one, so let's fix that. Each order has a list. That should do it. So we've got a list within a list. The other thing that we want to do, otherwise we're going to have to create a menu in a minute, but we really want the default value here to be kitchen. Okay. So if the role is kitchen, it should go through the kitchen view. Okay, we're getting there. We can see that we've got the correct order list. So we've got an order list, and we have an item 0 and 1 in there. And within the list, we've got another list. We're only showing one item here at the moment, but I'll fix that. Okay, so here's a little bit of proof of concept of running the application directly onto a mobile phone without having to download the APK. You can see I'm in the Windows desktop version here, and I've used screen mirroring, casting, to be able to put a copy of my actual mobile phone onto the screen next to it. Okay, it's connected to my Windows machine. You can see over here that I've got the option of my Android over here. We simply hit the plus button on that, and of course we've lost that for a second, but it doesn't matter. I'll bring it back, and we can now move into the test mode on that. And in the test mode there, it's going to install that directly onto the phone. And we're going to pause that, because I'm going to, when that starts actually doing something over here, I'll bring it off pause. So just to be clear, I have got my actual Android mobile phone connected by USB to my laptop. I'm casting the screen so we can see what's going on the actual phone. And I have the ADB drivers installed, which I actually did using Android Studio, although there are other ways of doing it, I am told. That is the most effective one for me. It should be noted that if you have an old version of your application running on your, or installed on your mobile phone already, it may require that you uninstall that first. We can see here at the bottom it says it's starting the app. You need to be a bit patient when first running this, but it does have the smart update available up here top right as before, so the alterations to the APK can be done in real time. Now, even though we did get some errors going on here in the debug, it has not stopped the application from installing. You can now see that it's automatically installing here. And bingo, we now have the application running on the Android machine, the sign up and the sign in both working there, keyboard popping up as it clearly would do on the actual phone. So that is proof of concept that this does work. I will do a separate video on how to get the ideal stack sorted out to be able to do this and other very useful ways of speeding up your whole rapid application development even faster. I've just booted the application up and it's automatically taken us to kitchen view because that's the role that is set there at the moment. And you can see that apart from the obvious, which is really needs formatting properly, in the kitchen view we're seeing all the drinks as well as the French fries. Now we obviously need to filter out, he only wants to see the food that he's got to cook there. And the reason why I haven't done that or can't do it is because I don't have a field there to allow me to do it. So we can easily fix that. You just go to the table order and we can add that to the data type. Now fortunately, because we add it to the data type, everywhere across the application where that data type is used, it gets changed. I think in this case it's actually only one, but if you had that data type used in many other different places, it would add it to them all, which is the beauty of the data type. So let's add that here. We'll call that product type index because we are using the index to do the filtering, and it's an integer and it is not a list, so we'll create that. We then need to edit the account controller action over here on the created order here, and we need to add the field, and the field is, we're not doing the image, we are going to do the product type index. The only problem is that we don't have that option available to us within this widget, which means we need to pass it to the widget in the same way as we have done before. We'll just put a placeholder value in for a second so that we can save that and come back to it. But we do need to go through and pass to this widget the product item index type. So that's done up here at the top of the widget, add item. We see we've got the other ones. We're going to edit that and we're going to add another parameter. And that parameter is going to be an integer, and that integer is going to be the product type index. We'll leave it as required and we'll give it a default for good measure of 0 and confirm that. Now that will almost certainly throw up some errors because we need to, because it's compulsory, we need to now set that. It actually didn't throw up an error, probably because I put in the default there. But we now need to go down to the action of the account controller again. And we're going to have a look at that. It's two actions. We're going to set over here. Each of the fields are set individually. We're going to, that's where we put it as a placeholder of 0. Now we can do that as a component parameter, which is the product type index. And we can confirm that. And we can close that. Now that value is available to us in the filter. So we can go back to, this is a list within a list if you remember rightly, but we are in fact going to filter this list here on the child widgets over there. We can go in and we can edit that, and we are going to filter the list items so that the item in the list data structure field, sorry, the filter is coming from the order children item, and we are going to filter that by the item in list, and that is going to be equal to the second value, and that is 0 for drinks, 1 for cocktails, so it's 2 for food. We can refresh the app. However, we do need to add a new order because the old orders don't have the line, the item index type in there. So that's why we don't see anything yet. Pretty sure. If not, I'll debug it. as yet, we have no real clear way of moving between the different views, the kitchen views. So let's address that. On the order view over here, we're going to put that in here as to show this page on the nav bar. Yes, nav bar is required at least 2 pages. Okay, that seems fairly easy. We're going to, not the icon. Nav bar is currently off. Let's go and fix that. Switch it on here. As it says, it needs at least 3, so we'll put kitchen view and we'll put in bar view as well. And there's our 3. We haven't got the icons right, but we're going to make them right now. Okay, we've got an error over here on the redirect. When navbar exists, the logged in page must have a navbar. Okay, all right, let's add it. I'll put the icon as a person here to indicate that when we click that, it's going to reload the role of that person. Not such a bad thing. I wouldn't have done it unless I had to. Okay, I've made a few fundamental changes to what is going on over here. I wasn't particularly happy about having this role down here. It didn't really work, actually. So what I've done is that I've moved the conditional, multiple conditions on page load. I've moved it from the redirect page onto the order view page. Ostensibly has the same effect, except that now within the settings over here, the initial page is the login page. It goes to the order view. It'll still do the same redirect depending on the role from the order view to another one if necessary. But by doing that, we were therefore then able to remove the bottom bar down here, the redirect on there, which I felt was a bit clumsy. The other thing that I've done is that I have gone through the formatting of the list view. So let's have a quick look at what I've done over here. All right, so you can see that we've still got our drinks and our cocktails and our food at the moment. I am not particularly happy with this, but I'm not going to change it for the moment. If we go to the kitchen view there, we can see that we've got all the orders. They're now ordered, by the way, in when the order was taken, so the most recent first. I could actually add that maybe as a field here, but it does still include orders on that which are not strictly speaking food. French fries are there, but we've got red wine and Coors. So I'm not going to address that right now because I think it's something that we can address maybe later, or we can do with the filter. I don't consider it to be that major. We've got the bar view. I've not even done the bar view there. So we've got a few changes. I have formatted clearly the kitchen view here. We've got the ability to show that as when it's ready or not. That is not wired up. And we also have the table number coming in here. I've also not wired that up, but you can see with a bit of jiggery pokery, we've got the formatting on that looking quite good. We can still place an order as before. We're going to do one of those. We'll do a cocktail. We'll do a pina colada, and we'll do, just to make sure that we really relate, 5 plates of chips. We're going to place that order, and we can go back to the kitchen view. And you can see right at the top, we've got the French fries with 5. We've also got the other orders, but I've mentioned that already. We do still, however, have this rather annoying thing going on here, which is where the image is not being shown correctly, even though that is a red cocktail. As you can see here, I've just copied that link into here. We can see that we're not getting the image there. So I'm going to fix that as well. Throughout this video, you're going to see at times I struggle with getting the images in the product section here to display properly. You can see here we have a glass of wine. There's a picture of me just in the testing purposes. So you can see that I've actually fixed that. Okay, now what I did here actually is to turn off the use of Canvas Kit. Now the reason why Canvas Kit is interfering with this is because of something called cross-origin resource sharing. Now there is actually a fix for this permanently across where we can switch back the Canvas Kit back on, which actually renders the website faster. However, because it requires command line utilities to do that, I'm not going to cover that in this tutorial. I'm going to cover it in another one afterwards. So until I do, the solution here is to switch off Canvas Kit. That will affect both the web deployment over here and the test runs over here, which are effectively a web version of the application. And then finally, we are going to move to the very important stage, and I apologize for leaving it right to the end, and that is we're going to do a callback. What we're going to do is we're going to add a total here at the bottom of what each order adds up to. And as I say, we're going to use a callback to do that. So bear with me while I do those things. Okay, now to the callback. Let's just refresh ourselves from this diagram as to how we're going about things at the moment. We've covered the fact that we pass parameters, the tab index in particular, to be able to get our list of widgets here to show the different types of product, the drinks, the cocktails, and the food. That is passing parameters to a widget. What we're going to do now is quite different. We're going to do the callback, and the callback is going to be triggered from the counter widget here, and it's basically going to say, we're going to create a running total of each order at the bottom here. We're going to pass back to it the value of that order as we click. So we're going to pass, for instance, 1250 if we are increasing, and we're going to pass minus 1250 if we are decreasing. We are going to update in here a page variable when we do that, and that is going to hold the ongoing order status. Now, there are other ways of doing this. It could have been done with probably a custom function or something like that, but I want to do the callback so that we can see how it works. One thing, and this is really just for the sake of remembering here, let's go to the add item over here where we're going to be doing the callback from the count controller over here. As you can see, we're having passed to this list item here the image URL, name, price, and product type index. Okay, now the way to remember this is that whether we are doing a pass parameters to a widget or we're passing them back up the widget tree from the widget, we still do them within the widget itself. And so we are going to go in here and we're going to edit and we're going to add a parameter. And that parameter we're going to call item value increment. We're going to either add 1250 or deduct 1250 or whatever the value of that product is. Now this is where it is quite different. You do not decide, well, that's going to be a double. I'm going to send back a double. That would be if you were receiving an item. You actually use an action over here, and on the action there is where we add the parameter, which is going to be the item value, and on the item value here, that is where the type is going to be a double, 1250 for instance. And is it nullable? Let's say, can we pass a 0 value back? I suppose we could do if we went minus from 0, so let's put that as nullable and confirm. Now the first thing that happens when we add a callback to the counter over here is that we are able to add a new action in the action chain. We've got 2 actions at the moment. I'm going to add another one, and that action is going to be the callback itself. So basically, this is a kind of listener. Okay, so we've got our execute callback. It's white, which means there is one, and we've only got one. Item value increment. And the value that we're going to send back up there is going to be the price of that particular product. Remember, each time we add 1, it's going to change the price by 1. We do it 2, it won't change the price by 2. It'll just change it by another 1. Now, as with many of these things, it's not quite as straightforward as that, because the price can be plus or minus depending on whether we've incremented or decremented the particular value. So how do we get around that? Well, we don't have a way of seeing on count change whether it goes up or down, so we're going to have to construct that. Not terribly hard, so I'll show you how. What we're going to do is we're going to create 2 state variables. One's going to be the value of the item count before, and the other one's going to be after. Now, if the after is greater than the before, then we know that we've incremented. And if it's less than the one before, we know that we've decremented. So that looks like this, an item number after and an item number before. We're going to make them nullable, and we're going to confirm that. Okay, I've moved the execute callback to the end now, and for good reason. Okay, so this is how the entire action chain looks. I put in a few alerts here for good reason, and I do that to debug, and it's not a bad habit. I've just put an alert here to say, well, let's just make sure that this is triggered. Okay, so I put a trigger value in there just to see that that's getting picked up. We then add the new value to the app state. So just to be completely clear, we're coming from here on this add button or this minus button here, and we are saying that we're going to add the item to the list. Now, if it's the first item in the list, it's simply going to be one item in the list. And if it's the second one, if you remember rightly, there are going to be two items in the list. One of them is going to be the before value that we're looking for, and the other one is going to be the after value. Now, if you remember rightly, we can use this custom function to decide where that second, which is the after value, is in the index, and we can use that index to therefore find out, if you like, what item we need to remove from that list. But it comes in very useful here because basically we can say that if the value is, we can update, therefore, over here, and we'll just look at this condition in a second, we can update and say that the after value here, the number before is going to be the line index of the last item. Sorry, this one here, the last item is going to be the after value, okay, because it's just added one to the list. And the item at the index is going to be the before value. Okay, now I've put a couple of alerts in there because that'll make it really obvious in a minute. Now, if it returns -1, which is what the function is designed to do if there's no match at all, then we come down the true avenue. If it is -1 here, we don't want to update in this way because it'll actually effectively be looking for an index value of -1, which doesn't exist. We know under those circumstances that the before value was 0 and the after value was 1. So we could set the component states over there. And we've got an alert dialog going on here, which I mentioned before, which is going to tell us, it's going to show us the before and after values there so that we know that we are on the right path, if you like. And then we're going to do kind of the same thing over here. Okay, and then we can go on. We've got another alert going on here. That is going to be the before value, and that we're also going to do the after value in this box here. So we can see what the before and after. If it goes 0, 1, that's going to deduct 1 from the other. It's going to be +1. If it goes 1, 0, it's going to be deducting 1 from it. So we just do an alert to check that that's all right. And we're finally going to use the same logic and say, well, if there's no match over there, so that's true, -1, we don't really want to do anything at the moment here. But if there is a match, we want to delete the duplicate, so that's removed from the list. And finally, we do the deduction of 1 from the other, just to see whether we've got +1 or -1. That's not actually what we send in the callback. In the callback, we send a double by taking the after price minus the for price. Don't forget the parentheses here, multiplied by price. So that's what we're going to send back. And let's go and have a look at that in action with the alert so we can see very clearly what is going on. Now, while that's just booting up over here, let's have a quick look. Remember that the callback comes in two parts. The first one is the action that instigates the callback, and the second one is the listener, which happens in the higher in the widget above it over here, and we can see there's a new action over here going on that we can program. We've got the alert dialog box there. That's basically going to say, what did we get back from that callback? And that should be the full double value, which is going to be like 12.5. And we're going to alert that. I think I now know why that got rounded. Let's put that to one side and come back to it in a second. And then we update the page state with another inline function, which basically says that we're going to take the page state that it was before. So if it said 1250 before, and we're going to add the callback to it. So now that's going to be 24 in total. So we're going to add the two together, and that becomes the new page state. And the page state, if you remember rightly, I formatted this slightly differently. The page state there is bound to the item total, which is the page state there. So as that updates, so does this update. So how does that all look now when we go to the order screen over here? We can add a stellar over here. We can see that we triggered. That was the first alert, just to let us know that things are happening. It's then going to say what was the before and after value. Before was 0 and the after was 1, and that was set because there was no match before, because there's only one item there. We're then going to say, well, what's getting passed back in the callback? Not quite sure why I put QQ, just so I could identify it. And then finally, what is the actual callback? Now, it's doing some rounding here, which is a bit annoying, but it's only in the alert. When we actually go to do the final one here, it's added correctly 1550 to the order total. Okay, so let's add quickly a red wine. Goes through the same thing. It should be adding another 1250 to that. And now we've got an order total of 28. Let's add another stellar so that we can take it away again. So that's 1, 2, 2, 16, a rounded number. We got 43.5 as your total. Now this should deduct 1550 from that when we reduce it. We got the trigger. We notice that we got a 2, 1. So 1 minus 2 is minus 1, and it goes in there. Yep, the value is going to be a negative value. It's going to take away that value. And again, the total drops. So we can see all the things that are going on there as we go through. Now, the only other thing I've done in a little formatting while we're here, I've added a table number over here to it. I've formatted that over there. So what we want to do is add the table number to the order, because if we go over to the kitchen view at the moment, we've got the most recent first. We can see that we've got a few things that we need to tidy up. I mean, it's got 0 French fries and 0 blue drinks here. We shouldn't really have that. And also, we want to mark those as having been done and removed from the list. But those things are relatively simple, so I'll get on with that. Now, for each table to pick up the table ID from the drop-down, we need to add that to the data type over here. Very simple. That'll be added everywhere. We then need to, in the same way as that we were passing all the other items to this component up here, we're going to need to pass also the table ID. So we're going to add a parameter there, and that is going to be called table ID. And that, because of the way we've done it, is an actual fact a string. Is it required? Let's just give it a default value of table 1. That will solve any null errors. Then here on the app state, along with the other items over here, we can add the field, which is going to be the table ID, and we can set that from the component parameters over there. So all we need to do now is to ensure that we set the table ID over here. That's going to be the widget state, and that is going to be the drop down. Okay, we do actually need to do that on each of these because they are separate. So we need to do that on there, on the drop down, and also on this one over here. And widget state, and on the drop down. Okay, let's have a quick review of how things are working at the moment. We've got our drinks, we've got our cocktails. Over here on the drinks here, we're going to add 1. Notice now that's immediate. I've taken out all the alerts on that one. We're going to add another one. we're going to add a stellar at 1550, and then we're going to take it off again back down to 45. We can now have wired up the tables now, table 1, 2 and 3. So we've got table 2 going on there, and we're going to place the order. We can now go across to the kitchen view, and you can see here we've got is table 2. A moment ago I've put in the timestamp as well and put it to that rather friendly a moment ago, and they're all ordered in the order of the timestamp. I actually think now that this is a particularly good view for the bar view, so I'm going to swap those around. We still haven't got a bar view that I'm particularly satisfied with, so I'm going to do that now. You really only want to see, sorry, a kitchen view, you really only want to see what the kitchen has to prepare, which is French fries, a fish or something like that. So I'm going to fix that now, and I think we'll probably be calling it a wrap. Okay, I've decided to add an app bar here. I've done that simply by going over here and adding it. The style for that is set over here, and the height, although I set it there at 40, can also and should also be set over here as well in the app bar, 40 and 40 here. And although that looks big and fat, that's actually what it looks like when it's rendered. The reason why I wanted it, because I want a place to put this slide in menu, so I'm going to put this at the top of each of our views, the bar view, the order view and the kitchen view, and then that's going to be a slide out menu. Okay, so this is how it looks now. We've got our orders with our bar up here, our bar, and we've got our kitchen, which says bar view, but it isn't, which we've still got to do. From here we can simply drag in a side drawer over here, and then we're going to populate that with a component, and we're going to use AI to generate that component. We'll use a sketch to component. We'll go and find a sketch of a menu and take it from there. This one here will do. Open that up. Yep, we'll generate the component from that. Okay, we can edit that in a minute, but that'll do for the moment. We'll insert the component and call that the menu. Incidentally, if you ever want to know what something looks like without yet deleting it, you can use these hide the features on the different viewports to see what it is. So, and also you can do that if you want to temporarily hide something while you're in the process of development. After a bit of tidying up, we get this, and we can go over to each of the bar view, kitchen view and order view, and we can assign the slide out menu to an action on the menu item here. So we go down to the drawer, we add the drawer, and we select the component menu that we've just created. You can see the effect over here of what it's going to look like when we press that. When you click into space, it'll go back again, so we don't need a specific hide drawer. Let's put an action on the menu item here, add action, and that will be on tap, but it'll be show drawer, I believe. Here it is, it's open drawer. Here it is in action, out it comes, and back it goes. We need to add the same feature to the bar and the kitchen. Drag the drawer in, add the component menu, and program up the menu item. Okay, we need to now program up with actions something on each of these items. These three, order view, bar view and kitchen view, are the easiest because they're simple navigates. Navigate to order view. Logout is also particularly simple. You go over here and on tap, this is part of the backend database authentication, Firebase authentication logout. Simple as that. For set role, we're going to create a custom dialog with text input, and into that input we're going to put, or it's a drop down, one of the three roles: kitchen, bar, and waiter table. and we are going to set that as the application variable, if you remember rightly, because that's where we are keeping it. Role here. Let's see if Sketch Component can create that alert. Change of plan. Let's do it by using a prompt. Let's try this. Custom alert with drop down and 2 inline buttons below it. One labeled save and the other labeled cancel, black background and border radius of 8 pixels. Actually, yeah, that really is pretty good. So we'll insert that component and we'll call that alert role, or role alert, the alert role. Give you a 5 for that. Oh, 4. Well, herein lies the weakness of AI. That looks like a drop down. It's actually just put in a text container that looks like one. So we're going to swap that out. Put those in as waiter, bar, and kitchen. On the save button, we are going to put an action. And that action is going to be yes on tap. We're going to alter the state management of the update the app state. Which app state? It's going to be the role. What are we going to do? We're going to set the role value to be the widget state, and the widget state is going to be the drop down. We then need to apply this custom alert to the menu. On the menu, we are going to put the set role here on. We might as well put the action on the entire row. Doesn't make any difference. Means that the area is slightly larger. And here we are going to add an action, and that is going to be an alert. And it is an alert. It's going to be a custom dialog. You select from the custom dialog the alert role there, and let's just wait for our errors to go, and that is it. I am extremely tempted to manage the tables, the table management, also from an application variable, but this time it's going to be a list. So that's the way I've decided to do it. It could be done as a database entry, but I'm going to show you this technique because I think the other one is self-explanatory and this one may not be. Create a new application variable, and we will call that simply tables. We are going to have that as a string, and this time it is going to be a list. Okay. Now, in the default values over here, we are going to add an item, because if we do not, there will be no items initially, and I think we're going to get a null error. Now, I'm going to call that bar. That means it'll always start with bar. I mean, imagine you are in a restaurant. It may be that you have no tables and everything is served at the bar. Or you may have 5 tables and still people are ordering directly from the bar. So bar would be a sort of default, de facto place where you could serve people. So I'm going to leave that in as a default value of bar, and then we're going to add to that list depending on the other tables. Now, is this going to be persisted? The answer is yes, because if you log out of it and log back in again, you don't want to have to add all your tables in again. Now, our alert role there was actually pretty useful. So I think I'm just going to duplicate that component and then alter it to be exactly what we want. So we're going to give it obviously a new name, which is going to be the add table. This time, instead of a drop down, we are actually going to have a text input field here. So I deleted the old one from the container, and let's add the text field there. We need to alter this action here because we're now saving a different kind of role. And here we are not going to, well, firstly we're going to choose, going to remove that, we're going to choose the tables, which is a string. And we are going to add to the list on that one. And what are we going to add to the list? Again, it's the widget state, and this time it's the text field. Now, on the order view drop-down list, we need to alter that. So rather than hard code table 1, table 2, table 3 in, we're actually going to take that from the application state tables list string. My mistake, this one here defined table options, application state, tables list string, confirm. Okay, we see initially we've got a table, we've got one item in it, bar. Let's go in and add another item, table management. It seems not to work. I'm going to go and fix that. Set role does work, however. Let's change that to the bar view. We should have save and close that, otherwise we don't know that we've saved it. Here we go, we never assigned the action for the custom alert there. Add action. Alert. Custom dialog. Select the component. Add table alert. And after we have saved that, we're going to want to close the dialog, aren't we? So on the save button here, we have one action, which is to update the app state. Let's add another action, and this one is going to be to close the dialog. Close dialog, draw, etc. And we want to do the same thing for the other alert. The menu alert here, set role. Let's go again to that action there, open it up, and we can just paste exactly the same one, close the dialog. Let's try and add a table here. We've got the bar, which is our default. Let's have another go at that. Table management, add a table, and we're going to add table 1. I need to change the font of that one. Save. Notice it didn't clear that. What happens now? We come out of that. Table 1, so it works. Set it to table 1. Add a couple of orders over here. 2 hot drinks. Place the order. Go and have a look at the what will be the bar view now. And there it is, 2 hot drinks a moment ago on table 1. Excellent. I actually used the wrong action here. It's to dismiss custom dialog, should have been on here. That's why it didn't go before. Let's just go and correct that both on the this is add role, so let's just change that to add role, because no, change role, so we're clear on which one is which. So that's change role. Let's go back now therefore to the other one and make sure that we've got a dismiss dialog there going on too. Look, I've just added the role to up here so we can see what role we've got. You can see that if we go into set the role and we change that from what was kitchen to say bar, we save that, it closes, and now we know on each of these pages what role we're in. Just a useful little additional feature there. That just about concludes the introductory course into FlutterFlow. I'm just going to finish on one thing though, which is I didn't go into great detail about the kitchen view. The kitchen view turned out to be a little bit more complicated than I thought, and ultimately it required, to get this view correctly, for us to use an API call. The API call here is get the kitchen line items, and if we go across to that line call, you can see that I have created here a cloud function to do what I want to do, which ultimately comes in with a result. And because I've used the cloud functions to do that, get filtered ordered items, you can see that it's in the project, and you can clone my project and go and have a look at the code. There is the code, predominantly written by AI, which is selecting the items where the product type item index equals 2 and throws out that result. But because it's a cloud function, I've decided not to go into great detail on it because that's going to be part of a follow-up tutorial. The only other things therefore I did was, generally speaking, tidy up on that, which means that, for instance, over here in the bar view, this button here is now connected to the view that you're going to get on the kitchen view. So as you click one, the other one will update. It doesn't work in reverse at the moment, and a few other things for just tidying up the look and feel of that. I do believe, however, that all the points that I wanted to cover when we set out to do this have been covered. So thank you for your attendance on this. If you have enjoyed and learnt from this tutorial, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It gives me great encouragement for me to continue on these, and which I endeavour and hope to do so in the forthcoming future. So thank you for listening.